Nothing in this book is known to be true. It's a reflection on what I've noticed, not facts so much as thoughts. Some ideas may resonate, others may not. A few may awaken an inner knowing you forgot you had. Use what's helpful, let go of the rest. Each of these moments is an invitation to further inquiry, looking deeper, zooming out, or in, opening possibilities for a new way of being. This is an introduction from the Creative Act, and it's a short but beautiful illustration of what this book is really about. And that is creating art and really about creating a life full of purpose and authenticity and not conforming and remaining open to all possibilities, finding a new way of being. So, the book is written by Rick Rubin. And for those of you who might know who Rick Rubin is, I personally did not when I started the book, but for those of you who do, when you think of Rick Rubin, you might picture a barefoot, bearded sage behind some of the most iconic albums of the last 4 decades, working with some of the greatest artists such as Johnny Cash to Jay-Z, Adele to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Rick isn't just a legendary music producer. He's a master of creating space for artists to discover who they really are and what they're meant to express through their art. And I think this illustration kind of shows a way of how he's able to do that. It's through openness, it's through not holding on to anything in particular, but just being open to what is present. He even, I think the one thing that really kind of drew me in with this introduction into the book is he's not proposing that he knows anything really, that this book is really just some thoughts, some reflections that he has noticed. And he's kind of telling you that they might resonate with you and they might not. And they might awaken an inner knowing, and to use what's helpful, let go of the rest. And I think that there's something behind this about not proposing yourself as someone who just knows, and rather being kind of completely open about the possibility that, you are just presenting thoughts for others to take away from. And in a way, that's kind of what I hope this podcast can even be. It's, I don't want it to be me expressing how what I think or I know. It's more so just me reflecting on what I'm taking away from some other people, like in this with Rick Rubin, or just like where I'm at in my current stage of my life with the reflections. And so, kind of going into this specific book now, when I first got my hands on the Creative Act, I honestly, like I said, didn't know who Rick Rubin was. I read online that he was a music producer, but I didn't know the overall philosophy that he had when creating art. And I mainly read this book because one, I got multiple recommendations from all different types of people telling me, oh, you have to read the Creative Act. You have to read the Creative Act. But also on another point, I have been a filmmaker. And in a way, this was kind of a book that I thought would help to provide clarity on the creative act, the way of creating art. And so that was kind of my inspiration behind getting this book. But what I soon realized was that this book really isn't about creating art. And although it is, what it's also about is really about how to create the most meaningful art of all, and that's our lives. And in a way, what Rick is pointing to is that in order to do this, it comes from a level of grounding, mindfulness, and presence. We're going to kind of dive into like my main takeaways here, but before I dive in, I just want to welcome you guys to the I Am Here Now podcast. And in this podcast, we really dive into the ways that we all can be more mindful, more present in our daily lives. It's something that I'm constantly working at. And through this podcast of learning from other people who are on their process and a little bit ahead, like Rick Rubin, I'm hoping that it provides clarity and insight into how we all can live a more grounded, mindful, and authentic life to us. I'm really enjoyed this book. This is kind of my I've listened to it once. I read it one time through, and then this was kind of my third time going through this book and really kind of diving in, creating notes. And every single time I learn something new, something sticks with me that I really do think can help you just be more grounded within this life that we all get to live. And so I really think that regardless if you create art or not, this book is for you because if you're listening to this, you're living. And as Rick Rubin kind of points to that, we are constantly creating our greatest masterpiece, which is our life. And so that is what the creative act is. It's lessons and wisdom into how we can be the best creator we can be. And so Rick starts the first chapter by declaring we are all artists. And he starts by saying creativity is a fundamental aspect of being human. It's our birthright and it's for all of us. Creativity doesn't exclusively relate to making art. We all engage in this act on a daily basis. To create is to bring something into existence that wasn't there before. Through the ordinary state of being, we're already creators in the most profound way, creating our experience of reality and composing the world we perceive. So this is kind of what Rick is pointing to in this next point is that our perceptions of the world is the creative process. How we perceive the world is how we create the world around us. And I think we even kind of talked about this in the last uh, book breakdown that I did. I don't know if it's going to come out before or what, but in the last lecture, I think this is kind of what Randy Pausch points to is that we are constantly creating the world that we live in. Our perceptions of the world is how we live, and so this is kind of what Rick is pointing to. So in a way, we are all artists of our own life. And then he kind of continues by saying, to live as an artist is a way of being in the world. Emphasis on this word being again. This is his second time, third time pointing to it in this chapter already. To live as an artist is a way of being in the world, a way of perceiving, a practice of paying attention, refining our sensitivity to tune in to more subtle notes, looking for what draws us in and what pushes us away, noticing what feeling tone arise and where they lead. You exist as a creative being. Again, with the word being. You exist as a creative being in a creative universe, a singular work of art. And so to just start it off, Rick is kind of like exclaiming that we are all living as creative beings. And by being alive and perceiving the world, we are creating art. To live life as an artist is to live in a certain way of being. And as we kind of go into it, I think what this singular way of being, I guess not singular, but this way of being is grounding. It's being present, it's being open. So, high level, I only have one key takeaway, which is crazy for a book that's about 300 pages long. The main takeaway that from the creative act that I think can have a lasting impact on you lies in simply being. It's kind of what's highly emphasized in this first chapter. It's just about being. And through committing to simply being, creative works and acts and ideas will just flow through you. And emphasis on this aspect of flowing through, not from you. And I think this is something that Rick is really pointing to is that the creative work, the ideas are all around us. And if that we just kind of like remain open to what is there, they'll flow through us. If we are just being, they'll flow through us. But as we all might know, being isn't as simple as it sounds. Regardless of what it is, it could be the programming that we have been given to always do something of action, whether it's our schooling system of constantly doing. We have been pushed further away from how to be. And so, how does Rick point out is the way to be? So, I got three main ideas that I believe is Rick pointing to how we can just be in this world. And that's what I'm going to focus on in this episode. And those three aspects are tuning in, awareness, and openness. So let's just dive in straight into tuning in. There are a couple different chapters within the book that I believe kind of resonate with tuning in as well. So I'm going to talk about them as well. But what tuning in is really about, it's about being present where you are and tuning in to the universe around us and also tuning in into ourselves. And through this presence, you're able to see all the inspiration around and within us. And there's opportunity within this as well. So, kind of starting in, going into like the second chapter of the book, which is literally called Tuning In, Rick Rubin kind of starts with this kind of a poem that I really like. To everything, there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep, a time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. I think that with what Rick is kind of pointing to here is that within life, there are seasons. I think we all know this, that there are always seasons within this life that we live. And that through each season, tuning in means to be present where we are within that season, which I think is very powerful. It's something that is once again easier said than done. I've been through some harder seasons recently, and to allow yourself to be in that is harder than to just try and figure out ways to make you feel better. But it's through this being in the hard, the harshness, the storm, that I was able to take away some key insights that even led me into creating this podcast. So, I think that through just being, there's a lot of creativity and opportunity that flows from that. And so in this chapter, he continues and he's kind of asking the question here: how do we pick up on a signal that can neither be heard nor defined? The answer is not to look for it, nor do we attempt to predict or analyze our way into it. Instead, we create an open space that allows it. Man, how heavy is this? The answer is not to look for it. So that we're not going out and trying to find the signal, find the idea, find the way to live. You're not looking for it, nor do we attempt to predict or analyze our way into it. Have you ever did this? I know I'm I'm definitely a victim of this, of attempting to predict or analyze our way to find the answer, to find the way to do something. Even I'm relating it back to this podcast. There's always this kind of dilemma of, oh, what will kind of resonate better. And a lot of times, like just the way I naturally am, I'm trying to logistically think of the ways I can resonate with more people. But that's not really gonna speak to like how I truly am feeling, because through doing that, I'm thinking of something outside of myself and I'm not in the present with it. I guess what Rick is kind of pointing to here is like we can't look for it. We can't try to like logistically think about it. Instead, we create an open space that allows it. And what I took this as is by just simply being and just being in the present, we're creating the space to kind of just allow it to come. So instead of pursuing and kind of like hunting for like the ideas, for the ways to make things happen, allow them and create an open space for them to come in. And then he kind of continues by saying, we accept new information with delight instead of making comparisons to what we already believe. We live in the moment rather than worrying about the future consequences. We are spontaneous more than analytical. We are curious, not jaded. And so this is kind of the way to create that open space. We accept new information with delight instead of making comparisons to what we already believe. Have you done this? I mean, I I have and continue to do this sometimes where sometimes when I get new information, I'm jaded about it because it counters what I believed in the past. We live in the moment rather than worrying about the future consequences. I mean, that's what this podcast is all about. I am here now. We are spontaneous more than analytical, and we are curious, not jaded. And all this, like I said, it's easier said than done. And Rick kind of points to what being present kind of like leads to. Deep sadness and intense excitement can come within moments of each other. There's no facade and no attachment to a story. And I think when you're really present, you you realize just how life kind of flows. From moment to moment, you could feel deep sadness and then extreme excitement. And, it was funny when I read this. It's really resonated with me because, I've been going through moments of change recently where, you're letting go of something and there's a sadness in that. But in the very next moment, I realized that there's also an excitement that comes from that. That through letting go, you're opening to what might truly be meant for you. And there's an excitement that kind of comes from that. No facade, no attachment to a story. And he wraps it up by saying, practicing a way of being, that word again, being, that allows you to see the world through uncorrupted, innocent eyes can free you to act in concert with the universe's timetable. So, through this tuning in into what is and being open to anything that reveals itself, we are allowing ourselves to see through a new lens. And thus, we're being able to create better life and better work. Rick Rubin demonstrates that there is a river of ideas that could flow through us. And this is something that I feel like I kind of struggle with is that there's always a lack in my mind. And so he kind of talks about this in the abundant mindset chapter. And so he starts to assume there was a golden period and you're past it is only true if you accept that premise. Putting your best effort in at each moment, in each chapter, is all that we can ever hope to accomplish. So, once again, he's pointing to the aspect of tuning in and just being present. That when you assume that your best work is behind you, your best relationship, your best job, your best ideas are behind you, then it becomes true by simply accepting that premise. But if we could just remain open and just put our best effort into each moment, which to me, that's what being present and what mindfulness is really about. It's just being intentional and trying to you trying your best to be in the present moment. That's what it's about. And then he continues from this point. The recognition of abundance fills us with hope that our brightest ideas still await us and our greatest work is yet to come. We are unable to live in an energized state of creative momentum, free to make things, let them go, make the next thing, and let it go. With each chapter, we make, we gain, we experience, improve at our craft, and inch closer to who we are. And right here, it's kind of like he's pointing to that who we are is constantly being crafted. If we accept that the past was the best part, then we are ignoring the fact that we are in a constant craft. The idea of the best version is always just up to interpretation. All we can simply do is be and try our best just to be. Through tuning in and maintaining the abundant mindset, we open ourselves to receive the abundant energy and inspiration that surrounds us moment to moment. And through this, we are able to create with authenticity and presence. And so, this is what the first main takeaway I took away from the book of how to be, the best way to be is number one, through tuning in. And then next, the second takeaway, the second kind of main idea I kind of took away when it comes to how to be is through awareness. So this is the next kind of way to be. So Rick in kind of like one of the earliest chapters highlights this powerful tool of awareness. The chapter is literally called Awareness, and he starts this chapter by saying, in most of our daily activities, we choose the agenda and develop a strategy to achieve the goal at hand. We create the program. I think this was something that we all kind of are taught to do. We're always kind of taught to create the program, to figure out a way to achieve our goal. Super normal. And then Rick continues, awareness moves differently. The program is happening around us. The world is the doer, and we are the witness. We have little or no control over the content. And I really like this next point. The gift of awareness allows us to notice what's going on around and inside ourselves in the present moment, and to do so without attachment or involvement. So, what an awareness is just allowing the world to be the doer, allowing the universe to be the doer. And we are just witnessing the actions that the universe is presenting. And that through this gift of awareness, we notice what's going on around and inside each moment. And we do this without attachment and involvement, which that is the hardest part. It's hard to even witness and just be present with what is presenting itself. But then to not attach or get involved with it is the hard part. And to simply just take note and witness that's hard. That's probably the hardest part with this aspect of awareness. And so he kind of continues about stating like what awareness is and what it really isn't as well. Awareness is not a state you force. There is little effort involved, though persistence is key. And I kind of highlighted this word persistence, though persistence is key. It's something you actively allow to happen. It is a presence with and a acceptance of what is happening in the eternal now. As soon as you label an aspect of source, you're no longer noticing, you're studying. Once again, awareness isn't something that we can force. And he says there's little effort put into awareness. We're not struggling to be awareness. Well, awareness is something, and John Kabat-Zinn actually says this often. Awareness is something that it's a birthright. We all have it within us. And it's really just about not doing anything. You're just simply being. So the effort is minimal, but persistence is key because just who we are, the way we have been programmed, we struggle to just simply be. There's always something on our mind. There's always something that we want to be involved in and attached to. And that, in order to really be aware, the persistence of constantly coming back to it is kind of a key part. And so, what awareness really is just to be aware of the world as it is and accepting it as it is. And through this, action can be led through you. But it's not about analyzing what that action is, it's just about letting it move through you and allowing it to take you forward. And Rick finishes this chapter by saying the universe is only as large as our perception of it. When we cultivate our awareness, we are expanding the universe. This expands the scope, not just the material at our disposal to create from, but of the life we get to live. So, really, just awareness expands the scope of the universe we get to live in. We notice more, we are more aware of our surroundings and who is a part of our surroundings. I the kind of like idea I have with this is it's almost like our innate set of crayons, all right? Let's say within us we have a crayon box, all right? And if we kind of just stick to the programming that we have within us that has been kind of passed down to us, we might have like a 24 set of crayons of, ways we can see the world, which is great. The 20 you can create a really great crayon drawing with 24 box. I mean, this was kind of the normal. But I don't know if you guys have ever had experience with like a 106 box where it's like all these little in between colors. And I believe there's even maybe more. I don't even know what the highest crayon number is in a box. Maybe 300s, maybe a thousands. But the more open we are, the more possibilities we have with the type of colors we can choose to create the world around us, to create our perceptions, to create the world that we get to live in. And I think what this ultimately leads to is really helping to dictate the actions that we take because we have more colors within the rainbow of colors that we can choose from. And when we're more open to all the different possibilities, it can lead us to taking actions that are more aligned to what we truly are about. And maybe this is not ever possible. Maybe no matter how present you are able to be, no matter what, your actions won't fully be able to do this. What you say won't fully be able to perceive who we truly are. This might be an impossible, but what I think Rick is kind of pointing to here is that through awareness, through presence of an acceptance of what is, you allow vast amount of more colors within our crayon box for us to choose from to use. I don't know if any of this makes sense. I'm kind of going out on a whim here, kind of free balling a little bit, but I really hope that kind of like sticks with you guys because I think what Rick is pointing to here is really important that awareness gives us more ways to be when we're open to anything. And it's not easy. It's something that, like he said, it's persistence is key. It's constantly reminding yourself to just come back and be aware. Kind of continuing on from awareness. So, awareness is also kind of highlighted and represented through another important practice that Rick Rubin points out in a different chapter. And this practice is patience, something that I know is not a strong quality within myself, but it's something still learning to be better with. And I think Rick illustrates what patience is beautifully here in this book. And he kind of begins with how many of us, like myself, do live our lives. So often we sleepwalk through our lives. Consider how different your experience of the world might be if you engaged in every activity with the intention you might give to landing a plane. There are those who approach the opportunities of each day like crossing items off a to do list instead of truly engaging and participating with all themselves. I don't know if you are like this as well, but this resonates with me. I feel like a lot of my life has been crossing things off of a to do list. Just like if you look at a broad lens of what my life has been, go to a good high school, graduate, play football. All of this was just kind of like taking stuff off of my to-do list. Go to college, play football there, graduate, get a job right out of college. It's all just crossing it off the to-do list. I really resonated with this and I think what he kind of continues on with this next point points to what is the problem with that. Our continual quest for efficiency discourages looking too deeply. The pressure to deliver doesn't grant us time to consider all possibilities. So, through us constantly trying to do crossings off the to do list, we aren't allowing ourselves to see all the possibilities that are in front of us because realistically, there are infinite possibilities that are there for us to really take away from. So Rick continues describing what patience is. Patience is developed much like awareness. There it is. It's very similar to awareness. Through an acceptance of what is. Impatience is an argument with reality. The desire for something to be different from what we are experiencing in the here and now. And so, what patience is about being aware of where we are. And impatience is really kind of the argument with reality. We aren't where we want to be, and the desire for something to be different from what we are experiencing in the here and now. This is very normal. I'm sure you experience this. It's very, I think, innate with our culture to always just be striving, to always be, there's something else better for me out there. And although this is very normal, there is a limitation that this way of being kind of holds us down to because we don't remain open to all the different possibilities. We get so one track minded on that next goal that we lose sight of there might be even better goals or goals that are more aligned with what we truly want. So then Rick kind of finishes up this chapter by saying, time is something that we have no control over. So patience begins with acceptance of natural rhythms. The implied benefit of impatience is to save time by speeding up and skipping ahead of those rhythms. Paradoxically, this ends up taking more time and using more energy. It's wasted effort. This is kind of what Rick is pointing to here is that through the impatience, we believe that this is like what it's leading to is efficiency and that it's leading us to speed time up. But really, we do not have control over the time. So that energy that we're putting into speeding time up and getting to where we want to go to quicker is only just wasting energy and wasting the time because we're not there and we're not allowing and we're not seeing all the possibilities that are there rather than just staying so one track minded. So finally, Rick also continues to really illustrate what awareness is through this idea of connected detachment. And that's the connected detachment chapter. And so he starts this chapter by saying, consider detaching from the story of your life as it is happening. As hard as it may seem, seek to experience events like these as if you're watching a movie. You're observing a dramatic scene when the protagonist faces a seemingly insurmountable challenge. It's you, but it's not you. Instead of sinking into the pain of heartbreak or stress of being laid off or the grief of loss, if practicing detachment, this response might be, I wasn't expecting that plot twist. I wonder what's going to happen to our hero next. And in a way, by having this detached view of our lives while also being connected to the character, what you're able to do is kind of change the direction of the story. And of course, it's important to be where you are and to feel those pain, that pain of heartbreak, stress, grief of loss. But by also remaining detached from that story that's being created, you get to kind of see it as it is. It's just the story as it is now in your head. And that through this detachment, you can now kind of change the direction of, I wonder what's going to happen next. And Rick continues, the hard times were required to set up to allow these new possibilities to come into being. The outcome is not the outcome. The darkness is not an endpoint, nor is the daylight. They live in a continually unfolding, mutually dependent cycle. Neither is bad or good. They simply exist. There is no good and bad. The end point of a story is never the darkness or the daylight. It's just a constant cycle. And this is what Rick is kind of pointing to here. They simply exist, is from his words. He continues, this practice of never assuming an experience you have is the whole story will support you in a life of open possibility and equanimity. When we obsessively focus on these events, they may appear catastrophic, but they're just a small aspect of a larger life. And the further you zoom back, the smaller each experience becomes. Zoom in and obsess. Zoom out and observe. We get to choose. It's through us just simply taking it personally and obsessing of what's kind of going on in this current moment and zooming in that leads to this obsession. It leads to us not being able to move on, carry on, and live our lives in a way that really speaks to who we, what we're about. But when we're able to zoom out and just observe, we're really just able to see that it's just a moment. It's just a period, good or bad, daylight or darkness, as Rick puts it. No matter what, we're able to zoom out and observe that moment and then kind of come back and, be where we are. So awareness, like tuning in, allows us to be where we are. It allows us to be. And like tuning in, it also opens limitless inspiration and opportunity to creativity and a new way of being. In order to do this, you also need to have a sense of openness, which is kind of the other lesson that I took away in how to be. And so Rick kind of starts this chapter that once again literally titled Openness. He kind of starts it and he says there's a dullness and sameness. At a certain point in the methods or new styles of expression, a once useful routine might over time turn into a narrow, fixed way of working. I'm going to take a pause here. And this is something that honestly, meditation kind of became for me at one point. It became something I just went through the motions. It was like a routine, it was something that reflected to others and reflected to even myself that by doing this, I am present. But it was simply about just kind of going through the motions. So I wasn't ever really tuning myself into the present moment. It just became an action that I needed to do in the morning. So Rick continues to break out of this mindset. Our charge is to soften, to become more porous, and to let more light in. I think this was like it spoke. It spoke to me and about this kind of example of what meditation became for me. Because what I realized was to break out of this mindset of being so rigid in my routine, I needed to be softer. I needed to let light in. Rick breaks down the spirit behind open mindedness in later in this chapter, and he says the heart of open mindedness is curiosity. So this is where being open comes from. Curiosity. He continues, curiosity doesn't take sides or insist on a single way of doing things. It explores all perspectives, always open to new ideas, always seeking to arrive at original insights, craving constant expansion. It looks upon the outer limits of the mind with wonder. It pushes to expose falsely set boundaries and break through to new frontiers. It's kind of hard to be curious. It really is. I'm speaking for myself here. Maybe you guys might resonate with this, but to be curious is to let go of the way you do things. It's to let go of the way you see things. And to truly be curious is to be open to all ways of doing things. It's allowing and it's like listening. And it's that craving of constant expansion, which I believe all of us might want. I think, we all want to, there's something innate in us that we want to grow and expand. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just me. But that's kind of what curiosity allows. It allows us to be able to expand in a vast amount of multiple ways because we're just curious about how to do things. So he finishes this chapter by saying, there may be a beneficial purpose behind the issue at hand. The universe could be leading us to an even better solution. There's no way to know. We simply begin from a neutral place, allow the process to unfold, and welcome the winds of change to guide the way. So, what openness is, even in the hard times, is to almost have faith of what is being presented to you, knowing that this could lead you to an even better solution. We really don't know. And it's being open is also accepting that fact of we have no way to know. We can just simply begin from a place of neutrality and allow everything to unfold and welcome the winds of change to kind of guide the way. And I think there's something powerful in this of just welcoming change. There's something very powerful in that. And he kind of continues about being open to change in the chapter about listening. He starts, when listening, there's only now. I'm going to repeat that. When listening, there's only now. While the eyes and the mouth can be sealed, an ear has no lid, nothing to close. It takes in what surrounds it. It receives but can't transmit. The ear is simply present to the world. Formulating an opinion is not listening. Neither is preparing a response or defending our position or attacking another's. To listen impatiently is to hear nothing at all. He finishes it with saying, listening is suspending disbelief. So when we listen, we're present with what is being said. We're not trying to formulate an idea. We're not trying to formulate a response. We just are there listening and open to what is ever is being told to us. And it's about that suspension of disbelief. I love the way he puts it, suspension of disbelief. Because when we suspend our disbelief, we're really just allowing what is being said to be heard. And he finishes by talking about the power of this, the power of listening. Listening opens possibilities. It allows you to see a bigger world. Many of our beliefs were learned before we had a choice in what we were taught. And he finishes, listening then is not just awareness, it's freedom from accepted limitations. Before we were even cognitive enough to really formulate beliefs on our own, beliefs were handed down to us. And in a way, these beliefs, whether they might be true or not, they are limitations. They're just one way of seeing the world. So what Rick is pointing to here is that the power in listening is that it breaks us free from these chains, from these limitations that were handed down to us, and opens us and makes us free to new perspectives, new ways of seeing, new ways of being. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that we follow everything that we are told, but it allows us to now hear it and now be open to utilizing it. And so finally, to wrap it up, and really to wrap this book up, even this is the last chapter, Rick warns us of the dangers of the stories that we tell ourselves and thus the limitations that we're kind of putting on ourselves. So the chapter is called What We Tell Ourselves, and it starts. We have stories about ourselves, and those stories are not who we are. We have stories about the work, and those stories are not what the work is. What Rick is saying here is what we tell ourselves isn't the full story, but we are constantly creating stories. That's what our mind does. And he continues, you are you. The work is the work. Each person in the audience is themselves, uniquely so. None of it can truly be understood, let alone distilled to simple equations or common language. With each story we tell ourselves, we negate possibility. Reality is diminished. Rooms of self are walled off. Truth collapses to fit a fictional organizing principle we've adopted. And I think this is the power that stories have on us. You can see it within our culture, our society, our politics right now. But the power that stories have negate possibility. It negates openness to new perspectives. And the reality of the situation is diminished. We're seeing it through a fixed lens. We're seeing it through just one story. But to try and put reality into a story is impossible. No matter how hard humans try, it's impossible. There is, if we go back to the crayon box, there are way too many colors in reality. And so by doing this, truth collapses to fit a fictional organizing principle we've adopted. And I want you to really think about right now the stories that you are telling yourself about your life, about who you are, about where you are in relation to these. Think about it. Take the time right now. Now, I want you to just reflect on what these stories are really leading to. What is it? Now, I want you to reflect on the extent that this story is really speaking to the whole story of life itself, of your life, of the life of the people you're surrounded by. The stories that you tell yourself is just a fixed, limited perception of what's really going on, because the simple fact of the matter is no one can comprehend what is really going on in the grand scheme of things. No matter how much information you have, there is so much that is still left unknown. There's nothing that humans can even wrap their heads around when it comes to the way this life is. It's just, it's impossible. In a way, it's kind of scary because I think there's something in us that we want to create a story for everything. We want to create a story because it helps explain why things are the way they are. It gives us a bad guy. It gives us a good guy. It might give us hope. That's a powerful story. But no matter what, it doesn't tell the full story of what is going on, of what is. The only thing that really speaks to what is just awareness. Awareness of what is. Awareness of the being that we are. This is the power of awareness. This is the power of being. This is the power of openness. This is the power of tuning in and being present. This is what Rick Rubin points to in this book, of how through being aware, being present, being open, that through this, we can break free from the limited perceptions, the limited chains that have been passed down. We can break free from the stories that we are telling ourselves and really create a life that is outside of these perceptions, outside of these stories, and create a life that is really just about being where we are. And it's through, as this podcast is all about, that being right here, right now, is all that we really have. It's all we are promised. And it's the most powerful gift that we have. And Rick Rubin finishes this book. It's literally the last page right here. 2 lines. The universe never explains why. And the more we try to figure out that why, we're just wasting time and energy that could be spent being. And so I hope that all you guys were able to take away something from this book. I cannot recommend a book enough. If you guys are watching, you can see all these post-it notes. It looks like a crazy lab experiment. But The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin is a book to help creators. It's a book to help artists. It's a book to help people create in a way that really is authentic to them, to who they are and where they are in their life right now. But more importantly, what The Creative Act, A Way of Being is about is exactly that. It's simply about being, how we all can just be. This is something that I think you, if you haven't read this book yet, could really use, because through being, anything is possible. And so I just appreciate you guys giving me your time, your energy, and listening to this podcast. It was a fun episode. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to keep on reading this, and I'm sure in the future I'll break down this book again and probably a different lens. But I truly am grateful for your guys' time and energy. Per usual, I hope you guys stay grounded. I hope you guys stay present, and I hope you guys enjoy the now. And until next time, appreciate you guys, and aloha.